Things just took a major turn with the Canucks season remaining on life support for a playoff chance as the margin for error somehow gets even smaller every day. And recent events have the Tocchet hot seat conversation heating up more and more with every loss. We're going to be breaking down all that in this episode of Canucks Digest, so first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all Canucks updates as we finally head back home to Rogers Arena to try and salvage what's left of this season. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is it's not over yet. So right now, 9.7%. That is where we currently sit right now at the chances of making the playoffs. And while the regulation loss to the Winnipeg Jets on Sunday did not eliminate the Canucks, it means Vancouver will need to go on a long run to end the season. They have 8 games remaining and may need to win at least 7 to qualify for the playoffs. This is in large part due to the recent play of the Blues, who have won 9 straight and currently have a 6-point advantage over Vancouver. And yes, Vancouver still does have the game in hand. However, it's going to be looking very scary and very tough for Vancouver to make it. 9.7, it's not completely zero. There's still a sliver of a chance, but it's just barely there, especially when looking at the standings. Yes, we do have 1 game in hand, so that's an advantage. But you know who else has 2 games in hand? Calgary. You know who has same amount of games left as we do? Utah. So Utah, they're not fully out of it yet, and Calgary is still trying to get on our heels and try and play spoiler as a team that could just come in and steal that wild card spot at the last second. The whole conversation has been really revolving around Vancouver and St. Louis, but with recent events with Vancouver playing as poorly as they have been, or not exactly poorly, we still have been playing fairly decent in some of these games, but with coming up short in these games, this is something where Calgary has really just come out of nowhere after we had a 5-point lead on these guys, and we were sitting in a playoff spot at one point and then dropped back down because of St. Louis. But St. Louis, they're reaping the benefits of a very easy cupcake schedule to end the regular season, whereas we have a very tough road. We just went in against the best team in the NHL right now. We did take them to the deep water. It was just a matter of some bad bounces and poor defensive playing on our part in the third period that really caught up to us and really was one of the reasons why we lost this game. We were hanging in there for a little bit. We tried to take them to the deep water as far as we could, but eventually the Jets took off and we could not keep up with them. That was one thing that we're going to touch on later in this video. But overall, Vancouver, we're sitting in a really tough spot right now. It's going to be really tough to make the playoffs here. We have to go on a massive run against some really tough teams. We got to win at least 7 of these games. And as much as I've been saying it for the past few days and past week almost, I feel like at this point, but as much as we don't want to have that stress on us, we need overtime games. We need overtime wins, and we need overtime points. So whether we're able to just go on this run and get an overtime point in every single one of those games while the Blues lose a few, maybe we can do that. But at a certain point, you got to start getting those 2 points. You can't just keep losing in overtime. We can't just keep losing 3-goal leads. And the part of the reasons why some of those things we're going to touch on in a video later on tomorrow that is going to be up for you guys to check out. But with that, Vancouver has so many squandered opportunities where they just have had chances here and there all season. And now they're trying to really get it together despite all the injuries. But every time Vancouver seems to get something going together, something goes wrong. Elias Pettersson, he starts getting going, gets injured. Filip Hronek, he starts getting going, gets injured. Niels Höglander, finally starting to get going, he gets injured. Vancouver, go on a 2-game win streak, loss. Go on another run, loss. So a lot of heartbreak for the Vancouver Canucks this season, a lot of inconsistency. If we've been able to stay healthy, who knows? If Thatcher Demko played the game before, who knows? We don't know with a lot of things that could happen with this season. That's one of the crazy things with sports, is you can get so caught up in the what ifs of a season. But unfortunately, the what ifs, they never happen. It's just what is. And what is right now is a very grim outlook for the Vancouver Canucks on their playoff chances. But what do you guys think about Vancouver's playoff chances heading into it? I know a lot of you guys are saying that the season is fully done at this point. Shut Quinn Hughes down for the rest of the year at this point. But I don't think the Canucks will do that until they're mathematically eliminated. And Quinn Hughes is just going to keep fighting for as long as the Canucks have a chance to get a playoff spot. But it's going to be a very rocky road. Hopefully we can get some more wins, and not just regulation wins. I want some overtime wins. I want some 2 points here and there where we can just make up ground as quickly as possible so we don't have to win every single game. As much as we need to win every single game and want to win every single game, it at least gives us somewhat of a cushion and somewhat of a margin for error when that margin for error is literally paper thin right now, and the Canucks cannot afford to lose another game for the rest of the season. And these last 8 games, But let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments about these final 8 games coming up. Heading on home for a few of them as well. So that's going to be interesting. At least get some momentum at home to try and head out of this regular season with a high note into that final wildcard playoff spot. And that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is what's the talk of the town? So in a do or die matchup with one of the best teams in the league, it was clear that to win was going to be an uphill battle on Sunday against the Winnipeg Jets. Unfortunately, as the game was drawing to a close, Rick Tocchet's mistake created confusion on the bench, and that led to too many men penalty where the Canucks had 7 players on the ice at a time because of a pulled goalie. They had 6, and then they had an extra guy on there to make it 7. The Canucks, and then in a tweet here, the Canucks had 7 men on the ice to get a penalty, virtually killing their comeback chance. They shoot themselves in the foot to end things, which is an appropriate symbol for this season. And yeah, that could be summed up in a few words as well. Some other things that you could say for this season. But yeah, shooting ourselves in the foot, that's been a big definition of this season. It's been a lot of things where it's self-inflicted errors, costly mistakes where we shouldn't have been making them. We wouldn't have been making those mistakes last year. Some mistakes from last year carried over into this year and just got even more amplified. Some things were fixed from last year, but not enough clearly because we're on the brink of not even making the playoffs when we won the division last year. So that's going to be very tough. The other thing is, Locked On Canucks, they were very vocal about this, saying, why didn't Tocchet pull Demko? LOL. Guy gave up. So that's a very bold claim here. It's saying that the Canucks did not pull Demko when they could have in the final minute of play, even though they were on the penalty kill. Pulling the goalie, at least you can get the extra one out there and make it 5-on-5. But it's a tough call. I can understand Tocchet making that decision just to try and not make the bleeding any worse. But at that point, you can't get any worse. You're already down 2 goals. Just throw everything at the kitchen sink and see what sticks. And that's what the Vancouver need to do here. And I do agree. And maybe Tocchet did give up by the end of this game. His post-game press conference was not very uplifting in the slightest. It was very kind of not so much. It kind of was downplaying. I won't sugarcoat it. He was downplaying the loss, really. Yeah, crediting the guys that they fought hard. Yeah, they did fight hard. There was a lot of bad bounces in that game. But guess what? We need to see some accountability here where, hey, why did that mistake lead to 7 men on the ice? Why didn't you pull Demko when literally there was nothing more you had to lose at that point? So why wouldn't you just try and take the chance? A lot of things there that I wish Tocchet would have done, but that makes it even more to an interesting conversation here, which is that if Rick Tocchet were to leave the Canucks this summer, not saying it will, there wouldn't be a shortage of potential names for Patrik Allvin and Jim Rutherford to consider. In an article with the Hockey News, Izzy Chung took a look at some potential options for the Vancouver Canucks should Rick Tocchet leave in the coming months. Among the names mentioned by Chung are Abbotsford Canucks head coach and former Vancouver Canucks forward Manny Malhotra, as well as Mike Sullivan of the Pittsburgh Penguins, if he's let go, who Allvin and Rutherford are very, very familiar with. Now, this is all speculation at this point. There's no reports saying that Tocchet is for sure heading out, but we know for a fact, because this has been said by Allvin and Tocchet, that they are not going into negotiations for an extension until after this season. Is part of that wanting to see if they make the playoffs or not? Probably. Is part of that wanting to see just be focused on winning these games and not on a contract extension? Probably. It can be one as much as it is the other. However, with this, do I think that Vancouver wants to move on from Tocchet? No, because Allvin has said they want to keep Tocchet long term. They want to keep him here for a while. They want to work out an extension and make it happen. It's just a matter of waiting until the season ends, as per Tocchet's request. However, with things that have happened recently and how the media likes to run away with things, with John Tortorella being fired and John Tortorella being a former Vancouver coach, with Tocchet's Philadelphia affiliations as well, with having played there twice, and then you have also with Manny Malhotra working his way up through the Abbotsford system. Abbotsford is doing fantastic this year for his first year coaching, so that could be a big move up as well. Mike Sullivan, like the article said, very familiar with Jim Rutherford, not Jim Benning, with Jim Rutherford and Patrik Allvin, so there's some options there. However, if you are to move on from Rick Tocchet 1 year after winning the Jack Adams, yes, you didn't make the playoffs, but there was a lot of injuries. There was a lot of drama. Coaching wasn't entirely the case. I'm not saying that Tocchet gets a pass in this case. Don't think I'm letting him off the hook there. There's still a lot of things this season that definitely he is held accountable for, just as much as things that Patrik Allvin's held accountable for, Jim Rutherford, some of the players as well, and yes, to an extent, us, the media. People are wrong all the time in things, whether it's extensions, whether it's playing a guy, not playing a guy, trading a guy, not trading a guy, having your faith in the wrong player. There's mistakes that we make all the time. However, Certain mistakes can cost you millions. Certain mistakes can cost you seasons. Certain mistakes can cost you games. And that's where the accountability needs to be had. And maybe there's some repercussions. Who knows? But I don't think that Rick Tocchet is going to be gone from Vancouver. And if we're going into what Malhotra or Sullivan would be offering, Malhotra was hired by the Canucks to be Abbotsford head coach back in May 24, which we all know, which is his first bench boss role after spending previous 7 seasons as an assistant with Vancouver and Toronto. As for Mike Sullivan, he spent parts of 7 seasons in Pittsburgh with Patrik Allvin and Jim Rutherford, and the way things are going for the Penguins, who are set to miss the postseason for the 3rd straight season, looks like a change behind the bench will be coming at some point. So really, this one is mainly focusing on Malhotra and Sullivan coming. Tortorella, I don't think that's even a consideration for the Canucks. If anyone's really putting that out there, it's just for the same reason that they're putting out Rick Tocchet affiliated with the Flyers, just because of prior history. All in all, I think Rick Tocchet's staying. I think it's just been a matter of, hey, let's wait till the season's done. Let's not let this be a distraction for you, for the players, for the organization, for the fans. Let's just have this be a thing where, hey, let's focus on this run, try and get into the playoffs. If we get into the playoffs, cool. We'll assess that after we go through the playoffs. And then once the actual offseason hits, that's when we're going to see contract negotiations happen. And that's when we're going to see the talks really heat up between extending Tocchet or seeing him go to another team. I definitely don't think it's going to be a matter of firing before the season ends, because we still only have 8 games left. Firing him at this point makes no sense, but seeing what Pittsburgh could do as well with Mike Sullivan, who knows? Maybe a change of pace is what Vancouver needs. I don't know. I don't know what the right call is here, but it's definitely given us a lot to weigh on about. But I think in all likelihood, Tocchet will be staying. Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments on that as well. And if Rick Tocchet does, in fact, leave Vancouver, Manny Malhotra or Mike Sullivan, who would you rather have behind the bench for the Vancouver Canucks next season if Tocchet does leave after the season? Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.